She makes her own life lonely. She doesn't know what to do. She's gonna drive herself crazy. Better me than you. She likes to get up when the sun fades. Doesn't have to explain.
I mean, I started playing guitar when I was like 8 years old. I was in a band. I remember our first band was in junior high school, which is, what is that, like 10, 11, no, 12, like 12 and 13 years old. And it was like the seventh graders against the eighth graders and in a battle of the bands. And those guys knew that we were better than them. And so they started sabotaging all our stuff. Like they cut our guitar strings, they detuned our guitars, then they broke the drum heads on the drum. They did all kinds of stuff, crazy. I mean, really crazy stuff. But we still won, we still played, and we still won the Battle of the Bands. So there you go. That's what started it all out, when, in bands and stuff like that. And then I moved to California, and I was always in bands. I graduated from high school in California, and I was always in a band playing with somebody or doing something like that. And it was always music was always in my life ever since the Beatles. Ever since I first heard the first Beatles, that first Beatles record, that I Want to Hold Your Hand. I saw her standing there, and that first 45 with them in the, that black and white picture with them in the Nehru, with their collarless jackets and the things like that. I remember my dad saying, "Oh, in 6 months, you're never going to hear from these guys. They'll be gone. They're a flash in the pan, So, but anyway, so I started, building little fake guitars, and my brother and I had a little when we were young, way back, when we were like 10 and 11, 10, actually 9 and 10, we had a thing called the JBs, and they call it like the Junior Beatles, but it was, my brother's name was Jim. So it was like Jim and Jack Blades, but we call it the JBs, and everybody think it was the Junior Beatles. And we play Beatles song, put Beatle wigs on, and play Beatles song. It was like in 1965, 66, something like that.
I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing when you saw that. It kind of changed everything at that point. It really did. It changed everything. I remember that first album, Meet the Beatles, with the four faces on it, and it was just so cool. It just like it made me it gave me something to strive for. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. However, when I graduated from high school, I went to college. I was a pre-med student. I was going to be a doctor. You know what I mean? Because you got to, you're supposed to do something that not only your parents want you to do, but you're supposed to do something that's like very respectable. You know, Maybe being a musician wasn't that respectable back in the late '60s, early '70s. And then I started listening to when I first started listening to music, my brother, he was listening to all kinds of bands like Jimi Hendrix and what else? Like The Doors and all this heavy stuff. And I was listening to more pop music like the Monkees, you know what I mean? Things like that. Of course, the Beatles and the Monkees and everything like that. So he introduced me to all that other kind of music, which was pretty cool. Was that Beatles one? I saw her standing there, that single, that 45, that 45 for $1, you know. I don't even know if it was that much. It was whatever. It was that single at the I bought it at the five and dime store in California. it wasn't a difficult decision for me. I was like, this is what I want to do. What I did is I kind of like played my cards. I kind of said, okay, what I'm going to do is take a leave of absence. I called it that. I'm going to take a leave of absence for like 6 months or a year to see if I can do it. At first I thought my dad was going to, I was going to call my parents. They're like, I'm leaving college to move to San Francisco to join a rock band. It's like, click, hello, hello, hello. I mean, at first I thought it was going to be that way. And I thought my dad was going to get the most crazy about it. But my dad was pretty cool about it. He said, hey, man, everybody marches to the beat of a different drum. So if you want to be a musician, try it out. He said, don't kid yourself. If you think it's not going to work, then figure that out and go into do something else. But he said, give it a shot, give it a shot. I think that my dad, he always, my dad built golf courses, and he was, he was in banking, and he was a golf course developer and stuff like that. But I think always in his heart, he always wanted to be in the foreign service. He would have loved to have been the ambassador to Greece. I mean, he would have loved to have been, that kind of thing, been in the foreign service. So I think he understood. I think my dad was, he always wanted to be in the foreign service, like I said. And he was, I mean, like the ambassador to Greece, he would have loved to have been or something like that. I mean, he was a student of history, loved reading history books and everything like that. And so I think he understood in a lot of ways that you got to try something. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you got to give it a shot. Otherwise you're always in your heart going to say, I could have been a contender. I could have done this. I could have done that.
America dreams, America dreams. All your fantasies are cold reality. America dreams. Modern mortal man, he's into too many things.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I was a big fan of that kind of music. What happened is originally when I was younger, I like I said, I got into my brother's music, what he was listening to, and then in the late '60s, I was into like Cream, Wheels of Fire, Disraeli Gears, that kind of Blind Faith, all that kind of stuff. Anything that Clapton did, Layla and Deep Purple, got totally into Deep Purple and all that kind of stuff. But then when I moved to San Francisco, right before that, I got totally into like Sly and the Family Stone, the Brothers Johnson, Jaco Pastorius, bass player, Larry Graham, who played in Sly and the Family Stone and then Graham Central Station, and so I started playing slap style bass, and that was why they found me. And actually, the first thing when I moved to San Francisco, before we even formed Rubicon, the first thing I had, the Rubicon was formed by the sax player from Sly and the Family Stone, Jerry Martini. And before we formed Rubicon, when he brought me up because he knew he was going to put a band together, but it wasn't quite right yet. So he brought me into the recording studio at the record plant in Sausalito with Sly Stone. And so when I first moved to San Francisco, the first thing I was doing was in the record plant with Sly Stone, playing stuff with all that kind of slap style and everything like that. So I was really into that. So when he formed Rubicon, he kind of built it around that kind of funk, that funk music, that funk, it was like a funk rock thing, it was like, seven piece, three horns. But I mean, we had Brad Gillis, Brad was on guitar. He joined. Originally, there was a guitarist named Michael Sasaki from a group called Cold Blood, which was like a funk rock band in the Bay Area at the time. And but he became he did something else, so we hired Brad, and then Brad came in, and so it was like a sort of like a funk rock fusion thing. Rubicon was the stepping stone for Night Ranger, because when we formed Rubicon, we had Brad and me, and then we had at the end Kelly was the touring drummer of Rubicon. And then when Rubicon broke up in 1979, we formed a short-lived band called Stereo, which was just like a club band to play around the Bay Area. And actually, it was most of the guys in Rubicon, but it was more rock and more, the music was kind of more almost a little new wave-ish, you know what I mean? Kind of like, how would you like being under my wing? Sounding like that and everything like that. But that was sort of like, at that point we wrote a lot of the songs, and some of those songs, a couple of those songs made it onto the first Night Ranger record. But we did the stereo for a while, and then my roommate was a guy named Alan Fitzgerald, Fitz, and he was the bass player with Montrose and Gamma, and then he was also the keyboard player for Sammy Hagar. And so we all knew each other and everything like that. And he was my roommate at the time. And so he had just come off the road with Sam and he had playing keyboards. And he said, "Hey man, why don't we form a band? Why don't you bring your three guys? Why don't you bring Brad, Kelly and you? And I know this kid in Sacramento named Jeff Watson. And why don't we put a band together and we'll just do a thing?" And so I said, "Okay, it sounds cool." So we put that's how sort of, Night Ranger came together. And at that point, if you notice, I was like, everything was like, I was a slap style playing. Everything was like this. And so what I did was just, took a pick, just took a thumb pick, stuck it on, and that's how I play now. Everything's just a thumb pick, like a guitar, like downstrokes. Everything's like that, more like a rhythm guitar than anything else. So it's really easy for me to transition from that. Penny, I Got Your Number was a stereo song. Yeah, Eddie's Coming Out Tonight was we wrote that when we were in stereo and playing those clubs in San Francisco, playing the Palms Cafe in San Francisco. It was a real tiny little bar, little tiny, maybe it held 60, 80 people. It was interesting because at that time everybody knew everybody and people would come in to see your band. Like we go see Huey Lewis. At that time they were called Huey Lewis and American Express. Obviously they changed their name. And then they became Huey Lewis and the News, and they'd come to see our gigs. We go to see their gigs. Bill Champlin, Sons of Champlin, all these kind of Journey. The guys in Journey had come in. The guys in Jefferson Starship would come in. My wife knew Craig Chiquiso from the Jefferson Starship, and I knew. I first met Neil Sean. I mean, back in 1979 when I was in Rubicon. He used to come see Rubicon play, and so I've known Neil for as long as Night Ranger's been together. Over 40 years. So, that kind of thing. He'd come to the shows. Everybody kind of knew everybody. And we'd come and check everybody out. Everybody check everybody out. And of course, Fitz was real good friends with Sam. And so Sammy Hagar put us on some shows when we were Ranger before we were even Night Ranger, before we even had a record deal. He did this little tour around Northern California and some of the closer states, Nevada, I think. And he did it like a Taking It to the People tour. And so he put us on as the opening act for that. So it was kind of cool. Yeah, well, actually, it was even before even that Sammy Hagar tour. I mean, basically, when we put the band together, Bill Graham, the big rock impresario in San Francisco, famous guy, he kind of took a liking to us and took a shining to us and started putting us on shows as the opening act. I mean, we opened up Judas Priest when nobody knew who the fuck we were. You know what I mean? I mean, we opened up for Rick Springfield and Loverboy at a big outdoor thing in Sacramento. We did this and that. And that was the reason that we had to do that with the stage setup, because we were the opening act and there were like 2 or 3 other acts in front of us. So if we would have put the drums in the center, I mean, I would have been standing, like there would have been this much room between the end of the drums and the front of the stage, like about that much. And so Fitz came up with the idea, yeah, let's put the keyboards and the drums on the sides, and then you guys have more room to run around in and everything like that. And so it was really it was born out of necessity, and it became, yeah, it's sort of like necessity is the mother of invention. So it became basically a thing with us. That became our trademark, and that became our trait, and it stuck with us all these 40-something years later.
It ain't the way you move. It ain't the way that you move me. Oh no. It ain't the way you shake. It ain't the way that you shake me.
I think there might be a couple of those floating around somewhere. Yeah. I think, in fact, we think that we know one guy in the Bay Area that has one that was affiliated with our record company, Boardwalk Records at the time. And so they gave him the record just to check it out, and he's kept it all these years. I would love to get it back from him. I haven't been in contact with him, but there is one. There is one out there that just says Ranger without the night above it. It was a place and time. You know, it just happened. I mean, the 80s were a great time. I mean, it was a great time to come up as a band. It was a great time, right, for us. I mean, we hit right at the right time, right when MTV was hitting. And so, you know, I mean, when we first gave the "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" video, we made that video with some friends of mine that went to the UCLA Film School, and they checked out all the gear, you know, on the weekend, and we filmed it on the weekend, very ghetto style. The whole thing was done like we'd run into these areas and we wouldn't pay for it, and we'd film until somebody kicked us out and stuff like that. But you know, I mean, that was like the first, and then we gave them that video. We gave MTV that video, and I think that they at that time they only had about 10 videos or something. You know, like probably us, and you know, "Hungry Like a Wolf," you know, or something like that. Anyway, I mean, it was like I don't think there was a lot of videos out there right then, and so they started banging our video all the time, and all those kind of things happened. It was the 80s. Everything just happened right as it happened. It was just a magical time. You know, it was a great time for us. You know, it was a great time. There were no cell phones. There was no this. There was no that. There was no internet. There was no. It was music. Everybody loved music. MTV was this new thing. Every kid was like glued to MTV, watching every MTV video that came out. You couldn't wait for it. You did interviews with MTV. I mean, we came in on that first Sammy Hagar tour. We'd go into a town. Even when we played originally with Kiss in January, I think, of 1983. We played a couple on the Creatures of the Night tour. We played some shows with Kiss, and I mean, we go into a town like Kalamazoo, Michigan, or something, and the people would recognize us because they'd seen us on MTV. You're almost TV stars. It was pretty amazing. So that really helped catapult Night Ranger's success. That, and we were just a killer, kick-ass American rock and roll band that just got up on stage and just from the beginning to the end, we just blazed. You know, and we just kicked ass all the way through. And we still do that.
Penny, it's a silly to me. I guess you're only holding out on me. I telephone, never ever home. And every time I call, they drive me up the wall.
I think it'd probably be the Midnight Madness album. I think it would be Midnight Madness. That was always, you know, I mean, it was interesting how that came about. We were on tour with the Dawn Patrol album, and we were selling a lot of records. Actually, we'd sold 1 million copies of that record, and we were on tour with Sammy and playing and everything like that. And then one day we called our record company, and there was no answer. We're like, what is this all about? And we sent somebody over in LA, and there was like that police tape on the door, like "Do Not Cross" line. We're like, what happened? Like the record company just closed shop, and all of a sudden we're like, dude, we're screwed. They owe us like, you know, 1 million records worth of royalties, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So we came right off the road. We got right off the road at that time, and we went right into the studio. And our manager at the time negotiated a deal to put us on MCA/Boardwalk Records, which is like a custom label that our gentleman Bruce Bird, that was with Boardwalk at the time, started his own thing, and he brought us over there. And so we went right in and started cutting those records, and that's why we had done Sister Christian. Sister Christian was already sort of in the can, as they say. We had already, you know, we'd already done that song and recorded, written it. I don't think we recorded it yet, but we had written it, and we were playing it, you know, and everything like that. And so we had to go right in and, you know, write all these songs and get all these tunes together and get everything going. And that's when, you know, we put together "You Can Still Rock in America." I wrote that song when we were on the road with Sammy Hagar, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it was just boom. We went right into the studio, recorded all those songs, and, you know, it's still to this day one of my favorite, you know, outputs of Night Ranger.
Can It's never over. Yesterday's just a memory.
That record will never see the light of day. I think Ted used some of the riffs and stuff like that on one of his records. Tommy used one of the songs. I used one of the songs or two of the songs. Um, yeah, it just wasn't right. The whole thing was done in an odd way, and it just wasn't right. I mean, I'd love to do a Damn Yankees record now. You know what I mean? I think now would be I think that would be great. I'd like to do it now before, all of us end up doing something completely different.
Somewhere in the land, there's a child at play. He's believing, dreaming, spirit of the nation, rising from the sun. There's a mountain high, the power of glory from the heart of
Well, how about you mean maybe there might be a TMG2? Well, we'll have to hold that thought for about another week or so before you might hear something circulating about something like that. Oh, Eric, yes. In fact, I just texted Eric. Let me see. What did Eric say to me? Eric, okay, you do this song, this one, and this one. I'll do this one. This sounds like more like the first album song. Da 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 da. Oh, I don't want to be spilling the beans, am I? But I'm afraid you might have to wait a week or two or three. I think I've given you enough. Talk is a great guitarist. He's been a great friend of mine for the last 20 years. I mean, he comes to our shows when we're in Japan. I go see him. He lives in LA also. He's got a house there. I mean, and Talk is just an amazing. Look, man, I've been so blessed to have played with some of the greatest guitar players. I mean, Brad Gillis, Jeff Watson. I mean, Neil Schon, Doug Aldrich, with the Saints, Ted Nugent, Tommy Shaw, Tak Matsumoto, man, he's an amazing guitar player, amazing songwriter, and a producer and everything. He's just, yeah, he's something else.
let it out. 'Cause many a love was lost in the river of doubt. Yeah. Tell me what you're looking for. 'Cause what I see, I don't like it anymore. You gotta break out.
Seven had some good songs on it. Yeah, they had some good songs on it. Underrated, not getting noticed. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I love Somewhere in California. I think that's a great record. And I also love High Road, and the latest one, I mean, I'm just, I'm a fan of our music, so it's hard for me to decide. The only thing is I thought that we were kind of wandering a little bit when we did Man in Motion, that album. And that was just kind of nothing was going right for the band. Everybody was going in different directions. Everybody wanted to write this, that, and the other. Everybody wanted to do things. And that's basically why the band just,
I did it. I did it. I did it for love. Now you wanna know why I let you go. I did it for love.
You're right. You're right. Watch out, little sister. Watch out. Oh, halfway to the sun. Yeah, there was some good stuff. I love Reason to Be. We pull that out every once in a while on tour now and play it in acoustic, just like maybe 2 minutes of it, 2.5 minutes of it. I really like that. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. There are some good stuff on that, but the band was in a real sort of a weird, headspace at that time. So I know we couldn't put everything on there. I love the symphony record. The symphony record was a dream come true for us. I mean, just to have an 80-piece orchestra play behind Night Ranger and put all the strings. And it was a difficult thing there because we had to make sure that, I mean, the tendency was we'd rather not even play and just hear all the strings and all the flugelhorns and all the, the symphony play. But we had to do that fine line of still make it a rock band, still make it a rock show with the symphony instead of like a symphony with a, with a token rock band. You know what I mean? So, and I think we accomplished that goal, and I'm really proud of that record. I love it. I absolutely love it.
There's a young child playing all alone for the day. His mother never warned him.
That's a tough one. See, the problem is with our crew and our band and everything, like it costs so much to get over, to get over to Europe and then to get here and do all that kind of stuff. That's why we don't, I mean, I think year before, I don't even think we played in Europe last year. Year before last, we just played a couple festivals. I think we played Sweden Rocks, and then we played one other one in Switzerland. But it's just so expensive for the Night Ranger and for all our crew and getting over there and getting everything going and all that kind of stuff and staying there and all that kind of stuff for just, for like, just a few shows that the problem is there's not enough money at a show. There was enough money for those big festivals. We were paid enough to where basically we just broke even, which I wouldn't have an issue with that at all. I mean, if we just go to Europe and break even, that's okay with me. But you'd hate to go to Europe and go in the hole and, and all of a sudden, come back from Europe and owe, $250,000 or something. No, I've always wanted to come to Greece. I've always wanted to come to Greece. I love the whole thing. I mean, I've just been, of course, I just saw the whole documentary on Alexander, and I watched that whole thing, and it just kept looking at all the parts in Greece and this and that and the other and everything like that, and just going, wow, man, I'd love to go to Athens. I'd love to see all that stuff. I'd love to see the Acropolis. I'd love to, I'm a big student of history. I love all that kind of stuff. In World War II, you guys were taken over by the Germans, and it was just, it was a mess then. And, Crete, I'd love to see Crete. I'd love to just be all over that area.
Sister Christian, all the time has come, and you know that you're the only one to say, okay. Your